Imagine crossing an international border with nothing but a list of words that hold your entire net worth. Apple, magnet, engine, daisy. They mean one thing on their own, but combined, they unlock everything you own. It's called a seed phrase, 12 to 24 words that together act as a master key to your digital wallet. Even if your currency collapses or you're fleeing a war zone, it still works. And that's because this isn't just a new form of money. This is a transfer of power from institutions that decide who gets access to individuals who are done asking for permission. Now, I've seen that power shift firsthand while reporting on some of the world's most financially volatile places, and over again, the same thing happens. When the system breaks, it's money that exists outside of central banks and beyond the reach of governments that becomes not a plan B, but the only plan. 800 kilometers from here, that idea was put to the test on February 24th, 2022, the day that Russia launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine, marking the start of the largest armed conflict in Europe since World War II. Now, Andre, that's not his real name, but he spoke to me on the condition of anonymity, was 20 years old and living in Lviv, near the Polish border. He knew that morning when he woke up to a deluge of telegram messages that his country is at war and the draft was coming, which meant that the borders were closing to him. So he had a decision to make: stay and fight or flee his home. He decided to go. Now, at that point, ATMs were already capping withdrawals at $33, lines stretched for blocks, and all of that assumed that ATMs were actually functioning because of all the power outages. Meanwhile, bank transfers were suspended, the currency was in collapse, and the threat of a Russian takeover meant that the hryvnia could potentially be overtaken by the ruble. Enter crypto. Andre traded $600 worth of Bitcoin with a friend for Polish zloty, which he used to get a bus ticket across the border and to pay for a hostel and some food. But he also brought with him a USB stick containing 40% of his life savings in crypto, protected by a seed phrase. So a code in his head and a few kilobytes of data. That was Andre's financial future. And this is what cryptographic cash looks like. Money only you can control that goes wherever you go. Invisible, untouchable, yours. So let's break down the word behind all of this: cryptography. It comes from the Greek kryptos, meaning hidden, and graphy, meaning writing. I like to think of it as the science of keeping secrets safe by turning information into code through math. Now, in the case of crypto, that secret code is your seed phrase. And that's what makes cryptocurrency different from digital currency that exists in a bank account. Because even though that's virtual, it exists in a closed system where someone else, with the click of a button, can freeze or block those funds. But with a self-custodial wallet, like that USB drive that Andre brought with him into Poland, think of it like a digital vault where only you have the key. And this is relevant not just in war zones. Every time you tap to pay, you ask an invisible system for permission. Algorithms check your ID, they assess your risk, and they decide what's allowed. That same infrastructure shapes your credit score, your reputation, your ability to get a home or to get a job. It governs mobility of people and of money, because nowadays, the borders that matter most aren't on a map. They're decided by banks who will either open an account for you or block you, by platforms that might freeze your funds. A year and a half after Andre fled Ukraine, Israeli entrepreneur Jonathan Karas was building a software startup in the West Bank with the help of subcontractors around the world. But when war broke out between Israel and Hamas in October of 2023, banks made it a lot more difficult for people living in the region to move money. So, Jonathan paid his team in crypto. And the beauty of this is that it's completely legal, because users were cashing out through local exchanges that followed local rules. As Jonathan put it, when you reduce payments to a cryptographic address, Suddenly, commerce exists without all of the political drama. And that's the thing about crypto. It's a chameleon. It becomes whatever people need it to be. An escape hatch, emergency cash, a way to reach someone when your countries are at war. It isn't just one thing, it is an expansive ecosystem worth more than $3.3 trillion. That's more than the market cap of Apple, and that's roughly the size of France's economy. And even as Wall Street looks to mainstream it by wrapping tokens in market cap tickers and in ETFs, the underlying tech remains untouched. Money without gatekeepers. Now there's Bitcoin, which is the OG cryptocurrency, and then there are thousands of altcoins. They function more like operating systems than currencies. Developers build on top of them, not just to move money, but to create a full stack financial system without a middleman. However, the corner of crypto that people use the most on a day-to-day basis are stablecoins. They're designed to stay pegged to the value of a real-world asset, and most often that's the US dollar. One stablecoin equals $1 US. Stable like cash, fast like crypto, and boy do they move quickly. They cross borders, they bypass credit card networks, and they do this for a fraction of a cent. That is huge. In countries with hyperinflation, stablecoins are a lifeline because they do two things exceptionally well. They extend dollar access where banks physically cannot do that for their populations, and then they let people earn yield on their token. So not only are they safeguarding their wealth, they're growing it. Now the biggest player is Tether. There are more than $157 billion worth of this token in circulation today, mostly backed by US treasuries. So what that means is that an issuer based in El Salvador owns more US debt than Germany, making it one of America's largest creditors. This company makes so much money that they invest billions of dollars into startups that are focused on neuroscience and AI. It even invests in Brazilian dairy farms. We are entering an era where private companies, not central banks, are deciding the rules for how money moves. Regulators are taking notice. Just this week, the Bank for International Settlements issued a warning that stablecoins should not be used as part of national payment systems because they threaten monetary sovereignty. $28 trillion moved over stablecoin rails last year. That's more than MasterCard and Visa combined. And that's why you're seeing the big fintech companies move in fast. Just this week, MasterCard introduced stablecoin payments into its platform. You've got Shopify and Stripe introducing stablecoins at online checkout. Amazon and Walmart, two of the biggest companies on the planet, are reportedly looking at launching their own stablecoin so that they can avoid credit card fees. Meanwhile, Circle, which issues the second biggest stablecoin on the planet, USDC, just went public in the US. In the last few weeks, its stock is up nearly 500%. That is how bullish mainstream investors are about this technology. Wall Street doesn't want to be left behind. JP Morgan launched its own token, and behind closed doors, some of the biggest names on Wall Street are investigating whether they should launch a unified token. Not because they want to disrupt the system, but because they want to keep up with the people who already are. Even Congress is leaning in. Stablecoins are being reframed not as a threat to American power, but as a tool to extend it. The White House says that stablecoins are advancing American influence on the world stage because of just how much debt these companies are buying. Because unlike a foreign government, a stablecoin issuer like Tether can't just liquidate its US treasuries overnight because it's fractionalized across millions of crypto wallets around the world, so no one person can pull the plug. That might be the dollar's most unexpected strength in the years ahead, that decentralized base of debt ownership. You've got Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, who thinks that with hard and fast rules from Congress, that stablecoin market could grow to $2 trillion. But the story here, it's not about market cap. It's about the zero-sum battle for control. Who has it and who's losing it? You have to understand how the system works in order to hack it. Let me show you what that looks like. 3 people, 3 countries, 1 through line. Allie Ray is a mother of 3, and she was working as a nurse in Boston before she decided to get into legal sex work through the platform OnlyFans. The year I met her, she made $1.3 million. But then the bank said, hey, OnlyFans, if you want to keep using our rails, you need to ban explicit content. And that's when she realized how fragile her income was. So she decided to take her power back. She hired developers to launch a crypto-powered website called WetSpace, one that was resistant to financial censorship. Cal Casa runs an underground forex exchange out of a cafe in Addis Ababa. That's the capital of Ethiopia. He helps people turn birr, the local currency, into Bitcoin. And that's necessary because the official exchange rate is at complete odds with the black market rate, which is how people actually operate. So locals go to someone like Cal in order to safeguard their wealth and move it across borders when they need to. And finally, on a reporting trip to Ghana, I met Kogotatso Nagako. He's a developer from South Africa, and he showed me how he turned a flip phone into a way to send Bitcoin over SMS texting. No smartphone, no internet, just a few lines of code. He calls it machankura, which is slang for cash. And when he built it for the millions of people across the continent who don't have access to broadband or data, he's now bringing that platform to Gaza. These are not tech mavericks. These are people who are building workarounds because the existing system failed them. And what they're building lays bare a far deeper shift in monetary power at play today. For most of US financial history, chartered banks were the only ones who could issue M1 money. That's the kind of cash that moves freely through the economy. There's $18.7 trillion in M1 today. Only 1.3% of that has been tokenized. So stablecoins are starting to disrupt the market, but there's still a lot left up for grabs, and that is extremely high stakes. So this may sound like a financial nirvana, right? Value on your own terms, be your own bank, but this system, it is not perfect. The tools that people turn to for freedom come with very big trade-offs, and even the biggest names in crypto can crack. Just this year, Coinbase's platform was breached. 2 of the biggest stablecoins suffered setbacks. USDC, the second biggest stablecoin on the planet, lost its peg to the US dollar during the American banking crisis of 2023. And Terra Luna, an algorithmic stablecoin pair, imploded overnight, erasing $40 billion. Meanwhile, crypto kidnappings, where people are held hostage and tortured until they surrender their keys, are on the rise. And once your money is gone, that's final. There are no chargebacks in crypto. There are also questions about whether influence can be commoditized as politicians launch their own tokens. This is the space I cover. I report on the intersection of money, politics, and emerging technology, and I try to focus on the places that most investors overlook. Palestinians who are turning to crypto during the war. Afghanistan's underground Bitcoin market after the Taliban takeover. I've reported on this industry through every bear market, even when my editor said I was wasting my time. And I didn't just do that because I felt like this was the next big asset class. I did it because I felt these people were rewriting the rules of power on the world stage. You know, I was actually meant to give this talk in Erbil, which is the capital of Iraqi Kurdistan. But earlier this month, the government banned crypto and started shutting down local companies. So organizers of that event were advised that I should not talk about this topic on stage. And to me, that proves the point. Even when you get locked out, people don't disappear, they adapt. I mean, here I am. So ask yourself, what would you do if a bank shut you out tomorrow without warning? Or if inflation made your life savings worthless? I've shared with you stories of people who've become their own bank, not because it was trendy or easy, because it was literally their only solution. And you know what? You can do that too. That's the quiet revolution beneath all of this. It is not the hype or the token prices. It is the right to move freely, to hold and share value on your own terms, to take control of your cash and therefore your future. And you don't need a passport or permission to do that. You just need to claim the keys.